I see people coming in right now, and to the panelists, please change your, if you want to chat with them, change to panelists and attendees so they can see your chat. If not, you'll be talking to just us the speakers. Hi, Emilia. I see your name there. No mic button, Emilia, because this is a webinar style. Unless we invite you to speak, but we can if you wanted to ask a question. Kelak. Boleh. Okay, let me just go on.
Right, 10 o'clock.
Yep, right on the dot. Let me just sort out my screen. All right, a very good morning, everyone. I see a lot of familiar names in the chat box, and we've also got people on YouTube and Facebook, so welcome. Welcome to the 26th edition of the Tuesday Talk Live by Place Borneo. And today we're going back to our roots. We'll be talking about events. We started this talk as a platform to share ideas, information, and solutions. And we've gone from events to gardening, and from New Delhi, India, right down to Canberra, Australia. Today, we're also going back to Australia. We started from my bedroom, and today we're proud to announce our new collaboration with TV Sarawak, where we are broadcasting live right now on their Facebook page, including their Creative Heritage and Innovation Community Chic page. And so welcome to those of you signing in on TV Sarawak Facebook. Today, we will come back. Hold on, let me just. And today, we'll be coming back to the topic that we love most, events, and we'll be talking about event branding during a pandemic. Should we even think about this right now during a pandemic? And how do we do it if we're thinking about it, right? And before that, those of you on Zoom, you know the drill. Just type your questions on the Q&A box. And those of you on YouTube or Facebook, you can also type your questions in the chat box, and we'll be able to pick them up from there. So today, event branding during a pandemic. Some say everyone's worrying about survival. They're worried about survival to even think about branding. And some, they want to do it, but they're worried that people might think that it's a bit insensitive for you to actually do any marketing at all, branding during this difficult times. So the question is, do we need to brand our events, which means branding your companies as well? And we obviously think yes, that's why we're having the show today. But why do we need to do so? And how do you do that? And after we had our rehearsal, a test run yesterday, an offshoot of the discussion would be, are we just looking at branding our events and hoping to revive them after the pandemic and for us to go back to how they used to be? Or should we rethink these events that we have, right? And change them into something better that will suit the post-pandemic crowd. Now, will there be a post-pandemic crowd, or will people actually just be the same once people forget about this whole thing? So this is what we're going to be discussing today. We've got some big names. We've got three big names live with us today. The first one is William O'Toole, events development specialist working around the world for organizations such as the European Commissions, Deloitte, and United Nations. Bill developed the event maturity model and used it to create national, regional, and city event strategies. And Bill, maybe later on you can talk a bit about that. He also wrote a lot of event textbooks, including risk management for events, crowd management, risk, security, and health, and soon to be released events feasibility and development. Welcome to the show, Bill. And excuse me, we've got Evan Murray, event coordinator of Life at Heart. It's a music business conference and global showcase. He's attended conferences and showcase events in many countries, including Golden Melody Awards Taiwan, Mondo Music New York, TIMM Tokyo, Bangkok Music City, Music Export Ukraine, and Life at Heart in Örebro, Sweden, where he's the international coordinator for film and music. And he was actually stuck here in Kuching, Sarawak, for 3.5 months at the beginning of the pandemic. So you're literally a Sarawakian already now, Evan. Welcome to the show. And last but not least, of course, we have our very own Madam Gracie, Geikie, Director and Principal Consultant of Place Borneo. More than 40 years of work and executive experience in the hospitality, tourism, marketing, hotel, and event management industry. She's also a tourism and event management trainer specializing in bid documentation, bid presentations, tourism research, PCO, PCO management and operations, and music festivals. So welcome to the show, ma'am. And as usual, before we dive right into the discussion, we're going to allow the speakers a few minutes to introduce themselves. So just 2 or 3 minutes to talk about anything they want. And I will start with you, Bill.
Anything I want.
Yes, anything you want.
Well, welcome everybody. That's number one. And this is a very important discussion because we all have to survive what's happening now and then see what's going to happen at the end, of course. I'm probably a little bit more optimistic than most people on this. And I've just done an article for a book called Crisis Management and Recovery for Events. In it, I talk about what will happen. A large part of what they're talking about now is about how to get back to normal. And what I'm basically saying in the article is that in a dynamic industry, normal is movement. In fact, you'll never go back to what it was. It's just not, that's just not what's going to happen. And that crisis actually drives a lot of sectors. That means that when there is a crisis, there's a development of the sector. And that's really what you have to preempt. Just a little bit about me. Thank you very much for the introduction. Firstly, I spent about 20 years running events, and this was concerts in about 20 countries, including Malaysia, Vietnam, China, all kinds of places. And then I wrote a book on the subject of event management. It was one of the first books that came out in 1999. And then I was suddenly thrust into consultancy, and I was picked up by a number of countries, mostly in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and Dubai. So I helped develop Dubai's event strategy, and then I went to Saudi Arabia and I was working there for a bit. But that included around about 20 other countries that I've worked in as an events specialist. The reason I say that is that I've seen it from a global perspective, how the event sector changes, how it develops in different countries, in different regions, and it does follow an actual path. I've got lots of books out, as was said, and that's enough out of me. Oh, I live in Sydney, in Bondi, the centre of COVID in Australia at present, by the way.
Wow.
First in everything.
All right, thank you, Bill. Next one, Evan, go ahead. You're muted, I think. Just unmute yourself. Yep.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm now officially unmuted. I'm coming to you live from Taoyuan, Taiwan, where, you know, we've enjoyed most of the, since June of 2020. Sorry, what year am I in? Yeah, no, 2021. Yeah, but we've enjoyed up until June since June, we've enjoyed freedom here in Taiwan with no, everything being open is, kind of steady as usual. And now since May, we've gone into lockdown, unfortunately. But yeah, so I started running a showcase conference festival in a little place called Burin, in a province of Newfoundland. That's the east coast of Canada on the Atlantic Ocean. And we did that for a tourism and culture and basically an initiative to kind of shine a spotlight on the area where we brought guests from all over the world. And then from there, I'm now the coordinator of a long-running showcase and conference in Sweden, Live at Heart in Örebro. Live at Heart is expanding into 3 conferences next year. There will be Live at Heart Västerås, Live at Heart Southeast, which is in a city called Kalmar, and Live at Heart in Örebro. I also work for a company in India, a major events and production company. They do music television and they run all kinds of festivals during the year. They're called Wonderwall Media. I've also done international market consulting for CAMA, which is the Canadian Association. All right, now I can't remember anything. And CAMA, you can look at CAAMA, and also Canadian Music Week this last year. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here and to discuss, what's going on in the world today.
Thanks, Evan. Next up, Madam Gracie.
Thank you, Mona. Hi, everyone. Good to see some familiar names and friends from Kuala Lumpur, Singapore. We run an events company. I think we evolved. We've gone into conferences. So officially, we are what you call a PCO, a professional congress organizer. But we've since gone into events and developed ourselves from there. So some of the events that we have, such as, well, I'm more into music festivals. I've been very involved in the Rainforest World Music Festival, which is a government-owned event, which is still running. It's 24 years this year. In fact, we just finished a virtual showcase of the event this year in view of the situation, and a back-to-back Borneo Jazz Festival, which is 15 years old. So, and we also run our own events, which was something that sort of, I won't say happened because of the pandemic, but sort of spurred us to continue to develop our own festivals and events. Or here in Sarawak, we have the Convention Bureau, the ministry that supports homegrown events. And we reckon that by going into homegrown events or developing our own events, I'm not sure, Bill, you've got to tell me this, whether we can survive through this as in just running festivals or events for anyone. So that's where we're at. This pandemic has sort of, I see the dynamics changing a lot. And I think you either had to do something, otherwise you're gone, so you had to find a way to be relevant. I think staying alive, just became that for everyone, staying alive in the sense of being relevant, being still in the business, and being visible. So I think it was all of that into one that made us realize, it really woke me up. I'll be very honest, because this thing just woke me up, and it just set it straight in the face and say, your business model must change. Otherwise, so that's where we're at. So the pandemic has taught us a lot of things, including my friends in the industry, wonderful stories, of success, and wonderful amazing turnaround stories from my industry partners as well. So event branding is something I think it's going to challenge us to think about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I think we've got a lot to talk about there. Perhaps later on, Evan may have a different point of view about the pandemic and how good or positive it is for the industry or not. So first, we're gonna go right on to the question. And Madam Gracie, you mentioned about having this virtual showcase of a music festival, and I think this is one of our biggest one in Sarawak. So I'm gonna start with you. So why do we still need to keep branding our events and also in essence branding your company? And you mentioned about this virtual showcase of your Rainforest World Music Festival. So why did you convince, or how did you convince the government that they still had to do this, or why did they decide they still needed to do this?
I think it was very good foresight for the state government, and in this case, the Sarawak Tourism Board, to decide to continue with the festival. Last year, it was a shock for everyone. You know, it was a shock to the event system, and where things just got cancelled because I think we were in that phase where we didn't know what to do. We're still dealing with the shock of what's happening, and then the aftermath of all, the shutdown, the lockdown. People were scrambling, and your first instinct is survival. So this year, the board decided that, hey, the show must go on, differently. So they called out, and the board decided that I think there was at one point a talk about going hybrid, but it was not ready, or the destination, we were still in sort of lockdown. So I think with that decision, well, by the government in this case, it came out the necessity to make this festival, the Rainforest World Music Festival, visible, relevant, and I believe they've achieved what they wanted to do. They've had I might be wrong, but I knew it was over 100,000 viewers, out of which a lot of the viewers were new viewers, meaning they had never been to the festival. Some of them have not heard, and 88 countries. I think it was over 80 countries. So it has, in a way, the festival has, in a way, become visible again, in that sense. I must say the Rainforest World Music Festival, being 24 years, has developed a brand. But maybe the situation now has brought them to start to rethink their brand. How do they make themselves visible, relevant? How do you give that value to the virtual visitor now? So I personally, for me, hybrid is probably going to come. It's going to be the norm. It's not back to the norm of mass events. Probably will take a step back, and hybrid is going to be the one. I see issues when we talk about branding. I see issues of I don't know. I think sponsorship is an area where we've got to really look at how we are going to give value to the sponsors online. The traditional way of having your buntings and billboards and all that, it's out the window. And we've got to think. I remember, Bill, when I attended your workshop at Berjaya University, well, it was a long time ago. Was it 5-6 years ago? And you had said that any event that relies solely on just funding, i.e. funding, and just sponsorship, and cannot sustain on its own, may not last long. And I that stuck with me, because I always ask, how can we be relevant? Just like our own event, the Miri Country Music, it's 7 years, and it was 6 years when the pandemic happened. And first thing instant was shut down. The team said, no, that's it, because it meant whatever little money you have left in your pocket was for more important things. That's what we thought. But the decision to go virtual last year was made for the whole purpose of just being relevant. And I think from there, the brand building started. And for us, for the company, I think it helped. So we didn't really go into event branding per se, but I think we started building ourselves to be relevant in this situation.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think right now we're not just talking about event branding. We're talking to you as owners of your events, of your companies, or leaders of your organization. When you do branding for any of your products, you're doing branding for your organization as well. And I think during this pandemic, that's one of a key factor. We see stand-up comedians actually trying to actually also stay relevant. They talk about politics here. Well, here in Malaysia, they joke about our politicians, and there's a lot of things that you can joke about here. But that's how they actually stay relevant in their own way. And Madam Gracie, you mentioned about going hybrid to be, the future of events and all that. I know, Evan, you have a different way of looking at things. What do you think about event going hybrid or virtual?
Well, I think the thing is with what happened with the pandemic is that we were forced into a situation and we made the best of it. Making the best of that situation, I believed, contrived a lot of new thinking, like, hey, why didn't we do these online meetings before? Or like, hey, or maybe the future is not going to be the same. The thing is that we were having these meetings before. We weren't just utilizing them. Like, we weren't using online because we didn't have to. And I think the thing is like many things in life, is that when things come in, they take our attention, we focus on them, we create a story. This is from just a psychological aspect. And then we try to fulfill that story. So the thing is, now we're saying, well, this is so useful, this is how we're going to move into the future. And I think probably from a year from now, I don't think people are going to be operating like that. With the vaccinations, what it is going to create is herd immunity in time to come, obviously, that, people can still get sick when they get vaccinated, but they can't get as sick. So it's going to be like it's basically going to be treated like a bad flu or like a cold or whatever. And it's going to disappear from our lives eventually. Now, there's two different outcomes here. Either it keeps mutating and, the world just keeps getting worse and worse. And I hope, obviously that's not what any of us hope for, or the vaccinations will create the herd immunity and we're going to forget about this in 2 years from now. Like, this is going to be like an afterthought. And you can kind of see this happening in the United States already. Like, people are touring, festivals are happening, and the people that are there are like, it's not even the same reality. Like, once you're able to go into a field with thousands of people, this whole thing is an afterthought. Like, we'd like to think it's very relevant because it's relevant in some of our lives right now. But once you're back on the field, once you're back, having a physical experience, like, this really is going to become like it did before the pandemic, where it's like, yes, it could be, maybe sometimes should be utilized, but it won't. I mean, for the most part, I think a lot of people, because people like to travel. I mean, that's what people like to do. People in the music industry, part of the reason why they're in the music industry is because it has the element of travel as well. And I mean, it's just too much of a powerful force in our life, the physical reality, for us to imagine what we're like now, having to sit in our homes for like a year or more, compared to absolute freedom, so.
Yeah, I like that, because right now everyone's talking about hybrid being the future of events, and conferences and music festival. They say, like, you can't go back to just a physical event. You must be hybrid from now onwards. And now you're saying in the USA they're opening up and nobody wants to do hybrid, and everyone wants to flock to a crowded space, considering the situation. But because it's already safe to do so, they want to do that. So that's a good thing, and that's a good input from you, because right here we are thinking, we have to invest in technology right now, we have to go hybrid, but then is that actually the wisest thing to do? And if people just want to attend physically, and why should you waste your money and going on hybrid and virtual when you're only going to get maybe 10 participants, you know, to your conference, a virtual conference? Is that even worth the investment? That's quite interesting. Bill, your answer, you had your answers, you typed on your answers in the email before. Your answer to this question was, you know, instead of branding, why don't we just, you know, change the way we do events? What are your thoughts on this?
Oh. Okay. Firstly, let's just take stock of where we're at here. Some of the things that Gracie and Evan said, first thing is survival. So we've got to get through it. That's number one. All right, now there's a variety of ways of doing this. And one of the biggest problems was, as I mentioned when we had our little talk the other day, was that the global business model is to go into debt as a way of trading. And just about every event, particularly government events, didn't have money set aside, because they just assumed that they would get more money from the government. Okay, now this is unique in history. I mean, you can go back to any religion, any single religion, and you'll find the same thing. You put 1/3 of your money in property, you put 1/3 of your money in cash, and you put 1/3 of your money in business. In other words, you keep money aside for the unknowable disaster, or catastrophe, which is what we've got now. And it's not new. These things happen all the time. We had the global financial crisis. We had SARS. We've had things happen to events all the time. And SARS was a big one in Southeast Asia, of course. Now, so it's not new. And what happens is that everyone gets complacent, and then they compete with each other, and they get exposed. So the real thing is about exposure. How exposed are you to unknown and unknowable risk? That's the sort of philosophy behind all of this. Now, so as I said before, and Evan will know this mob, Live Nation. Live Nation almost collapsed in April last year. And the reason was that they were heavily in debt. Okay, I mean, that's how they did things. They borrowed money, made money out of it, and it was the profit that they made. They paid back the interest rate, in which case they did very well, until the catastrophic disaster. The catastrophic disaster wipes out all the profit for the last 10 or 15 years. So you've been working for 10 or 15 years making profit, and the whole thing gets wiped. 95% of their business collapsed, you know, within that time, if you actually have a look at it. They were bailed out, and I don't want to go into it, but just keep that in mind, that we've overextended. Businesses have overextended themselves, and COVID has made people realise. The other thing that's happened is that it's made people realise that it's public health. Right? Now, the Hajj, for example, has known about this for many, many years. And while I was in Saudi Arabia, they had a lot of things going for the Hajj, because they had all kinds of diseases coming in. And you've got 6 million people in Kabang, you know, and they'd come in from all sorts of countries that weren't inoculated. So they were extremely good at these sort of things because they were used to it. We got complacent. That's what happened. We got complacent. We got money from governments. We got all these sort of things. We got events where you'd have 200,000 people. It's nuts. Okay. And I'm with Evan on this. I think it's about the live experience. That's what events are. This is not an event. No offense, Gracie and Mona. You know what I mean? This is not an event. Getting out there and shaking your body to the sound of music and meeting your friends and all the unknown, you know, all the surprises. That's what events are about. And there's no way in the world that that's going to be replaced by this. No chance. All right. Now, what may happen is that the other solution is not to have big events. Reassess the risk. The risk now for a large event now includes public health. You can ask the Saudis about that if you want to. Right? They know about that because they have these big events. So public health now becomes a new factor, and it should have been many, many years ago from SARS onward. I mean, we should have known. Now becomes a new factor in it. What else did I write down while you were talking? Okay, that means the live experience now has more value, right? That it has value. There's a gazillion things I could talk about. Don't forget, the money hasn't gone away, folks. Just because someone's not spending, you know, $20 or $50 to go to a concert doesn't mean that that money has disappeared. It's still there. And it's the same with the sponsors. They've still got the dough. They just haven't been spending it. So when this thing comes back, we've got to watch for hubris. Hubris meaning thinking that it's all wonderful again. We have to go back to what every religion says is to be careful with money. You know, not to be greedy, not to go for the big things. Do things gradually, build it up slowly. In Australia, they rather than having an event for 100,000 people, right? They had 100 events for 1,000 people. When you've got 1,000 people, you can keep these risks under control, like public health risk. Okay, this is a risk that's a result of the mass and cramming people into small areas, spaces. Now, there's money in doing that, and that's where the problem has been. So now we have to reevaluate the risk and reevaluate the value of the live event. Sorry, that probably didn't answer any question.
Yeah, but that was good. And you touched about sponsors. And so if we were gonna resize our events or reevaluate our events, we also have to reevaluate our sponsors, and they would have to reevaluate the events that they want to sponsor. Evan, you mentioned about an event that had to change and eventually change who sponsored their event because of the pandemic and because of the way they were doing things. And would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, so like one of the, actually it's considered to be the biggest festival in the world. Their main brand sponsor changed during the pandemic. And I mean, I think this has a lot to do with fear, right? So the thing is, like, because things are unstable, people are scared to make a move or not, or like how long this is actually going to go on. And you know what William is saying is very logical. It's a very logical and pragmatic way to think that, hey, let's do things gradually. But again, when like the United States of America has been so aggressive with their vaccinating that, I mean, like the Foo Fighters just sold out Madison Square Gardens last week, right? Like it's a sellout, you know, in a closed arena, sellout of like, you know what, like 30,000 or so people, and then people on the floor as well. So like we're gonna see this. This is the world. Like the world is gonna go back to normal. But I think the thing is that, again, going back to what William said, of course we want to, you know, like why not go back into the world in a more strategic and safe way? That doesn't mean people are going to, though, right? So the thing is, once they kind of get that green light, what most of us do is that we go, right? Like it's like we have, you know, we have amber to slow down, we have red to stop, but green means go. Like we don't have a middle light to like start kind of pushing. It's just, you know, go now or lose your place. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I do agree with being cautionary, but then once again, if you have kind of all the facts in front of you and you have the percentages and this is the way it's going to roll out anyways in a herd, you know, immunity type of situation, I kind of think that that's the way you have to roll with it too, as well. It's just like, you know, head towards the goal and let's go. So like in Sweden, they are thinking that Sweden is going to be open to the world at the end of August. Like that is the presumable, you know, that's the presumption right now. But again, we're working with a hypothetical, right? This is a hypothetical. It should be open. It could be open. It might be open. It doesn't mean it's going to. So when bands are contacting me about getting their invitations to go to Sweden, and I'm just saying to them, like, you know, you can buy your ticket. You can plan to go. The events are going to happen in Sweden. But if you can't go or if it gets canceled, like I don't want to tell you 100% like, yeah, go ahead. So this year, people do have the opportunity to stay back. And they do have the opportunity to do the hybrid. So let's talk about hybrid for a second. Like, you know, create videos instead of flying to a country. I mean, you should have those videos anyways for your marketing, right? Like those videos are super important to have when you want to get booked by different conferences or festivals during the year, regardless. So there is value in making these, you know, studio recordings and having them on YouTube. There is value. Let's not deny it. But that value is actually for the future. That value is actually going to come when you get to like go to these countries again.
Oh, thanks, Evan. And yeah, you mentioned about us having to go with the flow. So if you have to decide on just doing something, you have to just go green on the green light you mentioned just now, and not just go halfway through. But of course, it's very tough right now because there's a lot of uncertainty, volatility, and all those, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I guess decision making right now is slow, and people just don't want to make that decision.
Well, I mean, but we see that and again, I have to use the United States because it is probably one of the most highly vaccinated countries in the world right now, is that they are making the decision. You know, like because there's so many people vaccinated and they're getting there so quickly, like they're not, like it's just not happening. You know, like it's just not the way we think, like in a pragmatic way, like, oh, let's start slowly. Like when societies start vaccinating at first, or they're getting to the halfway mark, yes, people are still being cautious, be cautious. But once you start ramping up to like the 70% level and such, like now it becomes more of like, it's just full on. I mean, I was talking to my colleague from Tennessee 2 days ago. And I mean, he's running a major events company down there called Muddy Roots. And I mean, they're like, they're not wearing masks. Like people are doing whatever they feel like. It's like it never happened. Yep. It's literally like the virus never happened. Like literally, like it's not like a little bit or kind of. It's like it never happened. Yeah.
I guess we forget. You know, it's easy for us.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When you're in the lockdown, when you're in these situations, you just will have a tendency not to be able to understand like what real life is like. You know, you try to hard to imagine how it's never going to be the same. But I'm telling you, it's the same. And like in other places where people are highly vaccinated, it is back to normal. Like absolutely. You know?
And also, I think, so this ties in with government policies on vaccination, and they should really push for that, because then we are able to decide faster on what we want to do. And I think in this you know, in this area, I think Sarawak is doing quite well because we're vaccinating people very, very fast. Yeah, just before I go ahead, we've had some problems with our YouTube streaming. So those of you, or if you have friends going on YouTube, you can go on Facebook. And we'll also be uploading the full version of this talk later on. So if you missed some parts of it, so this is a virtual event. You get all these hiccups happening. Yeah, we're talking about sponsors. Madam Gracie, would you like to talk about how you actually manage this with the events that you did, the virtual event? How do you actually approach sponsors?
It wasn't easy, because I think number one, if I sort of, you know, I warm up to what Bill is saying, is that the events of the future will happen with public health, you know, at the core. And I mean, Evan, you think it will go physical, but I think what has happened now is that it's prompted us that we can go hybrid, because those are the additional numbers virtually of people who wouldn't want to travel anyway for one reason or another. In terms of sponsorship, I find it difficult at this point for me personally. I mean, every you know, you can run the same event every year, and every year it's different. You have different issues, you have different, you know, sponsors come and go, and now with this pandemic, they want to calculate. And I'm really reading up, and I can see a lot of visible values can be added on to the sponsors. Probably in this part of the world, I don't know, I think Australia, US, Canada, they're more proactive in that. Over here, it's still very old school style of sponsorship, wanting to see your visibility more. I'm struggling to there's a lot of talk about. I've attended so many of these events, online business events and all that. Everything's going for free, literally. And that's why you get the numbers, because it's free. And maybe by having your concert free and giving that to the sponsor, because I will give you visibility of 100,000 people, maybe that will help. So now my business model may change. I may be maybe selling it, our tickets, our entry tickets, really away from the normal price of conducting a festival, in lieu of a sponsor wanting that visibility. So that's one angle to look at. Or I may offer, we may have to think now. I personally already know that our business model cannot remain the same. And I like I read an article 2 days ago. I think Singapore has made a statement, the senior ministers, and they're saying that they're going to strategize to live with the virus. That's how they're seeing it, because they are of the belief that just like the flu, it's not going to go away. Something's going to happen. Like Evan said, there's going to be another mutation of something. And this is going to eventually become our way of life. It's just the precautionary measures that we take. Public health, that resonated with me, Bill, because I think I went through 1 year of the festival where we had the bird flu. And I remember our then deputy chief minister was saying that because he made that statement and it came on headlines, rainforests might be cancelled, and that brought a whole big panic into it. But we reacted and actively mitigated well. We gave face masks, we had temperature things. So I think I'm stuck in between, like I'm saying that I want to believe that Evan says everything's going to go back. People crave for that. Yes, physical. I really enjoy it. So that's why I'm sticking to hybrid, because I feel that physical element will be there, but technology is helping us now to develop the virtual presence. So it could be an added boost in some ways. Could be an added boost for numbers if people are wanting numbers. It could be an added boost for branding of your event internationally.
And if we're talking about, or you mentioned about, if we had more vaccination, or if everyone's vaccinated, and then, people are already comfortable attending physical events, and what Evan was saying, and when people will not want to go virtual. And I just read in the news today that they had a party in the UK, and 5 of them or 6 of them were vaccinated, and they did not get any of that Delta variant. And everyone at that party got contracted the virus, except for those 6 or 5 healthcare people who were vaccinated. And one of them only had 1 shot of the vaccination. And so, these kind of situations actually give confidence to people to actually vaccinate themselves, and then so they can attend an event. Bill, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I have. Just a few things about that, by the way. Firstly, that was in Australia. And secondly, we don't know the actual effect of the people who got COVID, whether they were sick or not, or whether they just got a bad cold. And thirdly, whether actually having COVID at that point gives immunity in the future, in which case they are now immune. I don't want to get into all of that stuff. The logic of this thing has just gone berserk. It's a bit like the place behind me here. It's just a mess. No one knows what's going on. And the people who do know what's going on don't seem to want to tell us in straightforward terms because they don't want to panic the masses, or God knows what reason. Either way, we've just got to go with who knows. But what I really want to talk about here is that what's going to happen after this is that public health, and this is going to come through insurance, Evan, all your events are going to cost a lot more. Have a think of the terrorism stuff, right? When the terrorism attack started, everyone thought, oh, well, it's just a local thing. Well, bad luck. What happened is a lot of events closed. security costs went up to 20 to 30% of the cost of public events. You realise that? When I was doing events, you didn't have security costs, but this was 20 to 30% in some places. And all these tiny events closed. When I say tiny, I mean an event for, say, 20, 30,000 people over a period of 3 or 4 days, right? They all closed. And we're still suffering from that, quite a lot of them. And the cost for events went up because someone had to pay for it, and it's going to be either the public or the taxpayer. So someone's going to pay for it. Now, this is going to happen with COVID. There is no doubt about it that insurance will go up, that the risk will go up, that there will be laws that are introduced, that mega events, when I say mega events, I mean, the Grand Prix, these sort of events, easy to cover. And particularly big government events are easy to cover because they'll just pay for it out of the government money. But private events, small cultural events, concerts, things like that, the cost is going to go up and someone's got to pay. Now, so what's happening is that the mega events will be able to pay for this. These new laws that will definitely come in, rules and regulations, and they'll be different for every state, they'll be different for every area. You'll go nuts, Evan, if you have to tour a band around anywhere or anything like that. It'll just drive you insane. Then what happens is that the cost of these things go up, which means, and this is the thing I want to talk about, the cost of entry for any new events people will go up, right? And this is what's happening now. It's all great that we've got these big events that have been going for 30 or 40 years and all the rest of it. But the event industry depends on churn. It depends on new events coming up all the time because the market changes, people change, generations change. We need new events coming up. We need people experimenting with events, small events that only have 100 people and grow to 200 the next year, grow to 5,000 the year after that. A bit like your festivals, okay, in Malaysia. That's how they started, right? Small things and they grow. And you need that for a vibrant event industry. The term event means new, something that's new. And if you put in things that are just repetitive, the same thing on and on, it works for a while. A lot of people make a lot of money, but you don't have the churn. You don't have those new things coming in that are responsive to markets. And all your students that you're teaching now will never be able to create events like all of us did, like Evan did. He created his own event. They will stop because the cost of getting into the business will be too high. Finish.
No,
Over.
That was it. Yeah, and that brings me to, you mentioned about how government could come in, and we had a question of what sort of aids that government can come in and help the events industry. And some in our country, they give funding for homegrown events, especially during this period, because they know people can't fly in, you can't get international attendees, so they promote local, domestic, homegrown events. And what are your thoughts on this bill? You had a long answer for this.
Oh, my thoughts on this.
Yes.
This is what the government should be doing. Why are you bringing in events from outside, for heaven's sakes? These are commercial enterprises, right, that make money and government suddenly pay for them. What's the benefit to the people, right, of having these big events? What's the real benefit? It's all very cute. They can go and watch the cricket or something like that. But what's the real benefit? The real thing, all these events that are mega events now started out as micro events. The Olympics started out as a bunch of athletes wrestling in not far from Athens. Okay, it starts as micro events and then grows into something big. And it started by people, by somebody. Started by a group of enthusiasts generally, and then it grew, and then that country sold it on to other countries. So why not do that? And now's a very good time to come up with new ideas because it's a new generation, the IT generation, and all the rest of these things. It's a lot of things that the millennials and all the rest of it are looking around for. It's a really good time for places like Malaysia to come up with unique events that are Malaysian themed, if you like, that eventually can go around the world. Have a think of the colour run. You know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What is the colour run? Well, it's something that's done in India all the time. I don't know if you know about it. But it was picked up by, I think, Swiss or French, entrepreneur, and now he sells that around the world. right? Now, you could do things like that in your own country. You don't have to bring in stuff from outside. And that's the real value, because the unique things are the things that will eventually attract people to come to your country, because people are desperate for something different, because everything's starting to become the same. So they want something different. Sorry, that's a bit of a rave, isn't it?
Yeah. Evan, what do you think about this? You've been quiet.
I think William touched on something really interesting there about taking it out of the country and touring it somewhere else. I think that's exceptional, because I think people, you know, the people that you're catering to when you do an event is obviously the public. So the public is going to want to do different things, right? So I mean, yeah, if you're taking, say, like the Banali festival he's talking about in India, and then placing that in somewhere, excuse me, placing that somewhere like France or England, that's, you know, I mean, yeah, it's a special thing that would occur. And I think cultures are distinct enough. I mean, like, even like where I live in Canada, when I live in Canada, you know, on the Burin Peninsula, like, it's a very different culture than the rest of Canada, right? Like, it's all geared towards like pirates and, you know, there's French colonies there, you know, like 2 islands owned by France, St. Pierre, Miquelon. There's a whole entire different cultural ethos there than there is in different parts of Canada. So to even think about that, actually, to take that culture and kind of bring it into another country and have an event based on that culture is actually quite interesting. And I think, yeah, I think also William is really nailing the hammer on the head there as well, about the fact about being, innovative, like, you know, new things to do. You know, let's think of outside of the box and these kind of things. I do want to mention, you know, Madam Gracie, like, you do have a very valid point as well. And I just want to touch on this for 1 minute, 30 seconds. Facebook, like, we don't live on, you know, we do live on the internet. Like, there is a physical world and there is a virtual world, and we have to accept that. And I try to tell musicians about their online marketplace all the time now, right? So I'm telling them, yes, you want to get out there and tour, but yes, there is an online marketplace where you can make money. You know, over 100,000 YouTube creators are making over 10,000 USD a month, right? Like, this is a real thing that's happening, and people really have to know that. And why we didn't talk about these things before the pandemic, I have no idea. I really, like, it's almost like it was just some kind of strange secret. But yeah, I do think Madam Gracie is absolutely correct that the online world has to be utilized more. Even if the world goes back to normal, like, yes, of course, because you want more people knowing about your event. You want more eyes to be able to see it. And I mean, if I see something that's interesting, like watching the Rainforest Festival, you guys put on the Rainforest Festival, you guys put on the Borneo Jazz Festival. Yeah, I'm interested in going. Like, you know, like, I watch it, I'm like, wow, that'd be so cool to be there. You know, I mean, and that's part of the reason why you want your event branded online too, because it just has more eyeballs on it. You know, of course, I mean, but I mean, again, like, it took a pandemic around the world for us to realize this somehow, you know, which is which is a little bit, you know, it's a little bit mind-boggling, but it's true. I mean, the thing is, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. That's an expression we have back in Newfoundland. We say a lot. And the thing is, yeah, once we were contained, we had to figure out how to still communicate. And I mean, so yeah, I think just awareness. I don't think anything changed. I think that our awareness became, our perception became altered by, like, how things just have to work.
And Evan, you've been to a lot of those big events, Bangkok Music City, Music Export Ukraine. Have you noticed how they have been doing things differently, or how they've been branding themselves during the pandemic?
Yeah, so I mean, well, everything's online and everyone is just trying to make it as easy as possible. I mean, so what's happening in some places is, like, you know, like, it's completely open to the public, right? So like some online events, like, everyone can tune in, everyone can see what's going on. That's what we're doing with, you know, Live at Heart, is that it's going to be, like, wide open. So, like, you know, the bands are going to be on YouTube, everything's going to be, like, there for you. And some conferences and festivals are making these self-contained, like they're going on these platforms where like you have to have a special sign-in code, you know, and to like view the event or see what's going on. So it's been a bit different for both sides of the coin, you know, like it's been depending on who the organizers are or what the goal they're trying to achieve. But I don't really agree with it. Like I think it's a little bit ridiculous to have a self-contained event on a platform, not only because you always get technical problems, which there always was, like anytime you go into these platforms, something's going wrong, right? Something is always going wrong. Keep it wide open. Keep it wide open so more eyeballs can get on. That's the way I'm thinking about it. So people are, it depends if they have long-term vision or short-term vision. Like short-term vision, people are looking at the immediates. They want to go on a platform. You know, they're going to pay big bucks to go on a platform because they want to make money off people that pay to go on the platform. I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't know how people can think that's even sensible because who cares? You know, there's so much content on YouTube and everywhere else. Like we're bombarded with it. We're overwhelmed with it. We can't even find the things we're actually looking for when we look for things, you know? So just get my whole philosophy is just get the eyeballs on the, you know, let people see it if they want to, let people experience if they want to. It may lead to future possibilities of participation in the physical world. And I mean, that's why the government sponsor these events, because they want people coming into the area and spending their money, and they want, you know, they want to raise the GDP basically. I mean, that's the, I mean, it can get a little bit more complicated than that, obviously, in details, but that's the general reason why, you know, these events even take place to begin with. So I think you just want way more eyeballs on the event. Keep it free. Keep it on Facebook. Keep it on YouTube. You know, like where people are tuning in, where people are wasting their time anyway.
That's right. They're looking for ways to waste their time anyway, so they might as well waste their time on you.
Yeah.
And Madam Gracie, what about you? You've organized events, and you said you've attended. What are some of the unique branding, you know, activities that you've seen with events?
I remember, was it last month, Evan, I was invited and attended the Canadian Music Week. And they went totally virtual with several stages and B2B. Well, admittedly, that was my first time attending the Canadian Music Week. Evan is right. Technology is so good and so bad at the same time. Things did go wrong. But I think the strategic intent was to reach out to as many people as possible. I was there as a buyer, you know, sort of looking out for bands and telling about our events. And I think I miss the physical. That's why for me, I know we can't go big numbers, or if we do go big numbers, the virtual element will be there. That gives the numbers, the awareness, you know, to your brand. And if just looking at the recent Borneo Jazz Festival, that is relatively a very small event. Our jazz festival, we don't have a big following here in this country. And the state of Sarawak has 2 jazz festivals, 2 country music festivals. We have a lot of festivals. And probably what Bill is saying, you know, have 100 events for 1,000 people. I like that because I think that's a strategic fit for us. We're not into big stadium numbers. We just, you know, maybe that's why, you know, we're trying, you know, we want to have big numbers because we want to be with those big boys and be one of them, you know, in the top 20s and whatever. I warm up to the idea of having events that will cater to 1,000 people or even 500, make it different, make it unique. And people will pay for something that they can relate and feel the value, you know, the prestige or the value. That's branding as well, or branding your event. So I'm learning a lot today, Bill. I've actually, you've just sparked me an idea that I can't tell because I don't want others to know yet. So it's really something. I want to touch a bit more on other events other than music events.
Mm.
In Malaysia, you know, we have business events, which plays a very, very big role. And that's something I think, Bill, that you created a event maturity model. Um, it's something our country or Malaysia is going all out for in the case of business events, small meetings as well, or MICE as what they would call. We have that many convention bureaus in Malaysia. And you know, last I heard was Johor is setting up. So we've got at all strategic points of the country, we have a convention bureau being set up. And I'm proud to say in Sarawak, Sarawak was the first convention bureau set up, and Amelia, I think the CEO is here. And we're going into bidding, and the government is proactively supporting that. And these are not hundreds of thousands. These are conferences, small, you know, events for 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 500 people, but a lot of effort from Malaysia is going into. We have the National Convention Bureau, MICEP, we have Penang, we have Johor, we have, I think, Malacca, so many more coming up. So I like what Bill has mentioned, and I'd like to hear from you. Maybe if you could share it with us this quickly on this maturity of an event. Where are we, you know? And I'd really like to do a study, even, you know, on Singapore. Singapore seems to have events come and go. And I was thinking to myself, oh, why did they cancel that event? You know, so there must be a reason why they craft another event over the old one and saying, okay, that's gone. Maybe that's something, the shelf life of an event.
You want me to talk?
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
I'm very
All
fascinated.
right, I'll quickly show you what it is. Okay, I put it behind me, but it really doesn't show it. So let's have a quick look. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, so it comes from the new book that's coming out. That's a little plug, you know.
No, go ahead.
Basically what it says is that countries and events go through a certain maturity path. And basically what that each phase is dependent on the phase before it. And the one that we're being forced into at present is this one. It's where standards are being, where there's standards everywhere. There's standards for everything. Occupational health and safety, workplace standards. Now there's going to be new laws and regulations with regard to public health. And these are made for large events. They're made for mega events, okay? Because little events, even though they are more powerful than the big ones, have a think of weddings, right? Even though they are more powerful, still governments focus on mega events, as do a lot of universities too, by the way, which is a bit of a mistake. All right, so what I'm saying is that the COVID thing, well, what will happen is that they're making the event sector more and more open to big disasters like COVID. That's what's happening. They're making it to what's called fragile. And what will have to happen is what's happening in Dubai, what's happening in Edinburgh, what's happening in New Zealand, where they're stressing innovation and creativity as part of their event strategy. In the past, they haven't done that. They've basically looked on getting in big events and building, you know, more centres and everything. But those three countries, or those three places, Edinburgh has always led the way with regard to events. Those three places are really in phase 5. They're realising that you need two different, you can't have the same rules for mega events that you have for small events. They're two different things. One thing has to be allowing people to get into it. Anyway, I won't go into it too much, but basically the maturity model looks at each area, and the areas come from the MBOK, the Event Management Body of Knowledge. So what you can do is actually go through it and pitch where your region, city, or country or event is with regard to the world. That's what we're doing. You're looking at a gap analysis, if you like, between where your sector is and the rest of the world. And the way you do that is you answer a number of questions. All right, now this has already been tested out in the States because I work there every year. So, all right, so I won't go into it because we haven't got time, but there's a lot. And one of them, which is a little bit controversial, of course, is the one about teaching and training in event management. This has to change. It must change, right? It must change and get back and come into innovation and dynamic events, small events starting off, so that we can replace things. As you said, without a doubt, Gracie, that's exactly right. That Singapore's strategy, without a doubt, if it doesn't work, get rid of it. If it's not helping our people, get rid of it. Okay. Now, Singapore is not in the innovation thing yet. Okay. Whereas Edinburgh and, as I said, New Zealand, I mean, think of New Zealand, there's 2 million people there, right? They have a hugely, or 2.5, they have a hugely successful event industry there. Okay? And this is one of the reasons for it. There you go.
Interesting.
Wow, thanks, Bill. And where
Isn't that astounding? I had that ready in case someone asked.
You wanted to put that on event.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And where
Well,
can we get this if you wanted to do that form?
Well, it's on the. It's coming out in a couple of months' time. When the book comes out, we'll have the assessment on my website. It'll be free. Assessment on the website, and you'll identify each area of the MBOK. The MBOK is the Event Management Body of Knowledge, right? And it divides up what you need to know in events, etc., into various areas. Now, what we've got to remember here is that we're talking about the event sector, okay? The event sector, not some specific event. So, you know, conference people might find that it sort of, you know, it doesn't quite fit with conferences, and you know what I mean? But it's about the sector itself.
Okay. And
thank
your
you
website
for allowing me to do that.
No worries. And was that on epms.net?
Yeah.
Is that the website? Okay.
Yeah, eventually, but I mean, it's coming out in the book. The book will be out, and that's an international publishing. You know, if people are interested in books, they should look at Don Getz's series, by the way. GETZ, you're probably familiar with it. They're coming out, particularly if you're academics, they're coming out with books very quickly, and they're very good. Some of the books they're putting out at present, you know.
Okay.
So that's a plug for Don. Who's a Canadian, Evan, by the way? Leading the world in event theory is a professor from Canada.
All right. And we're right up to our 1 hour mark already, and we don't want to keep people on and on. And thanks, Bill, for the lecture we had on event.
That's what it was, wasn't it?
It was a lecture, but it was an interesting one. And Evan was changing his backgrounds over and over again. And I think it's about time for us to end the show. Thank you so much to all the speakers, to Bill, Evan, Madam Gracie, for sharing your thoughts on event branding and a lot of other things as well. And thank you to all our viewers, and on those who were on YouTube and got cut off, I apologize. And we'll be posting the whole, the full talk on YouTube, and you can watch from the beginning to see the parts that you missed out. And those of you on Facebook, thank you for joining us. And we've got good comments as well from Jason Chiu, Didi. Didi is a PCO. Jason is also a PCO and an event management company. Thank you so much for joining us. And Emilia, who is the CEO of our convention bureau, she's here with us today. Emilia, you may want to talk to Bill next time, maybe about the maturity model. So guys, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we'll be having our next episode 2 weeks from now. It's every 2 weeks now, and we'll be announcing that on our Facebook. So watch this space. Until then, stay safe, stay home if you don't have to be out, and have a good day ahead. See you guys.
Thank you for the opportunity.
See you.
Bye-bye. See you later. Bye.